That's how we do it, man.
I like that. I'm inspired.
Yeah?
First of all, I want to get your autograph.
Yeah.
No, that was. You're a long-time radio guy. How long did it take you to bang out those words?
You know what's funny is the whole thing is with music and everything is like 3 minutes. It took me about 3.5 minutes.
Excellent. Because some people they'll take a week.
Yeah. Well, no, I find it always important to never overthink too much, you know? And besides, dudes like you and me, sports dudes like you and me, we can't overthink.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we have a hard time thinking anyway.
Yes.
Or at least a guy like me.
Hey, I got comprehension issues as well, so I hear you.
It's different for you because you've been writing, and writing takes so much more concentration and intelligence than it does to just stick a microphone in your face. But it's cool because you're good at being able to do both. I couldn't go over and do what you do. Why don't you tell people what you've been doing for the past 30-some years?
Well, first of all, Keith, it's good to be with you, and thanks for wearing the argumentative Dodgers hat.
I was hoping you would say something at some point. Yeah.
Geez, and it's 110 degrees outside. We couldn't go outside and do this. So, no, it's good to be here. I've been at the Sacramento Bee since 1989. I like to tell people it was when I was about 10, give or take. Yeah. Right out of college, pre-internet.
Yeah.
Which tells you how long ago that's been.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. Been in sports at the Sacramento Bee the whole time. That's my passion. I played high school sports in Oregon, in a small country northeastern part of the state. And I've done a lot of high school coverage, Sac State, UC Davis, Pac-12, did the Kings, headed our NBA and Kings coverage when the Kings were great. Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Did not like all the road trips. I think I'm still tired from the 2005 Western Conference semifinals. You've flown. It kind of wears you out.
Yep.
I enjoy my job. I enjoy the responsibility that comes with it. I thought your monologue leading in was a strong one, and it's true. Even if you don't want to listen to cancer culture, it's there, and it's there, and we feel it in the media. You've been a longtime media guy on the radio waves, and it's. You don't want sports to have politics in high school or college, NBA, but it's there.
Yeah.
And your consumer base, the fans, they're either on one side or the other, or they're down the middle. And so those we're going to have plenty of topics to talk about on that. And Sacramento's a great area. I've enjoyed my job. I'm kind of a survivor in that regard. Newspapers and media, radio and television. We all know that there's cutbacks, and it's cutthroat and it's cruel. So I feel fortunate to have that. It's a great forum to have. It's a fun venture that you and I are doing, and when you talk about not overthinking, we don't need to have a whole bunch of scripted stuff. We're just going to let her rip. But and the cancer culture and just sports and politics is not just on a national stage or the global stage. If you're talking the Olympics, it's right there in college.
Yep.
It's right there in high schools. How can it be in high schools? Because you might have we saw it during the pandemic. You had some superintendents and some principals at neighborhood, regional high schools that I want my kids on campus.
Right.
And then you might have a district just down the road, Elk Grove Unified, said, no, we're going to do distance learning and this and there's that tug of war and the influence. And we saw that play out a lot. There was more bickering on social media, Keith, regarding high school sports more than I've ever seen before.
Really?
And, I'm mad at the governor. And I'm mad at my school district, and I'm mad at the CIF, the California Interscholastic Federation, the governing body, because they're taking this away from our kids. And then you might have the other side, might be in the same class, might be in the same coaching staff, might be on the same administration board, or in the same newsroom, and say, well, no, I think we got to err on the side of caution. So that's never been in our lives. And so for young people, they're finding this out more and more. And one of the topics we'll talk on later certainly is, are you ready to be full-on sports again? Are we tired of, like you said, Keith, sports is supposed to be that release, but it's not always that release if it's still there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I did I did sports talk for years with CBS Sports, and I've been on radio for a long time. And I've never, in doing sports talk, being able to sit in radio or on TV and do sports talk, and it was always like like the TV stations would have us come out and they would have us pick for the March Madness brackets, and they would have us come in and talk for a few minutes about the NBA Finals or about the Super Bowl or whatever it was, and that was really all we ever talked about. We never had to jump into anything that had to do with politics or anything like that. It was, it's kind of always been like a quiet, stealthy, underlying thing. When we had the Olympics, when you had the black athletes and the protest there. To me, that was a little bit different back then. I actually had some meaning back then, but it's never been like that before. At least not on this scale. So now you get to a point where not only you have all the politics, but you also have the stuff that was happening with COVID, right? So we're gonna get into it in a few minutes. I'll talk about that because for me, it turned me off. I stopped watching sports. I stopped listening to sports. Stopped paying attention to sports. Even when I got out of sports talk. I stopped with sports pretty much exclusively just because I was worn out. But I wanted to go back to being a casual fan. And but then now, as a casual fan, between cancel culture, between wokeism, between what was going on with COVID and everything else, and the things that I disagreed with when it came to COVID, it was like a perfect storm, and it took sports and flipped it upside down, and it was unrecognizable to me, whether it was no fans in the stands, like I said in the monologue with major league managers coming out to relieve pitchers with masks on, and nobody else had masks on. It was like the most bizarre, virtue signaling, weird, like non-scientific, backwards, asinine, like we're all grown-ass adults, but we can't figure out how to, maintain and manage this thing. And it just seemed like it was a show. So it was irritating to me, and we'll get into it because I want to talk about not only, my experience with it, but yours, and then what the numbers say as far as ratings, people's butts in the seats, and what people think about politics and wokeism and everything else that's in sports.
Well, and then Keith, what is it that sports are trying to do? You're trying to appeal to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so, you think about the consumer who's watching it on TV or who goes to a Kings game or an NBA game or a Major League Baseball game. And now that the state is open, we got full crowds, and it's nice to see the NBA playoffs with full crowds. And so the consumer is split. You got people on the left, you got people on the right, and some may embrace and, hey, I appreciate that there's a Black Lives Matter paint on the basketball floor at Golden One or at anywhere in America, Staples Center or something. And then you might be sitting next to somebody who said, I don't want that here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so, you can understand where the owner of a team is trying to listen to his leading players, his star players, and we need to be sensitive to that. We need to listen to that. Okay, fair enough. But then but those aren't your consumers. They're your employees. Right. So that's a tough deal. And I think basically what we're saying here, Keith, is let's get back to normal.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
I don't think that BLM is going to be on basketball floors long term. I think the mask issues or the masking is slowly ending for concerts, for large sporting events. It was so cool to see some of these NBA playoff games in Phoenix, in Denver, in Milwaukee, in Brooklyn, in Utah, and that place is packed. Because last season, or even earlier this season, there's nothing worse, Keith, than piped in crowd noise for basketball. That's it's just goofy.
Football too. It was crazy. Then you look up there, and for a while I wasn't even I'd be at the gym and I'd see the baseball came back and I'd look, and you had to double take, and then when you did, you'd see. Oh, those are cardboard people. Those aren't real people, man. And that was weird to me.
Even the cardboard people look bored.
I know, right? It was
look at all those cardboard people dozing off.
It was bizarre.
49ers games.
Yeah.
And I went to one 49ers game, not to interrupt you, Keith, and covering an event. You've done concert reviews. You've gone to Grammys. You've gone to Super Bowls. You've gone to championship games. Well, the atmosphere is the fans, and when
Yep.
you go there, what is it? A scrimmage, and where everybody's just wearing their jerseys.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah, it's a
And,
very strange feeling.
and the economic toll is catastrophic. You would talk about the pandemic hammering down on businesses in California where we are. Well, the Kings lost some $180 million without having fans,
Yeah, I didn't even
and
know
for a
that.
small market team, that's devastating.
Yeah.
and that's crippling. And so. And you think about all those surrounding areas in Golden One Center, all those restaurants, they were closed. Mm-hmm. And so we're all ready. Let's get this going again. Concerts and sporting events. It's good for everybody. It's good to, we were all been bunkered in. It's nice to be able to go to a live event.
Yeah, and it was jacked up too because a lot of those places down there that built those restaurants and those different things that you could do as a consumer was built around the fact that the arena was down there, and then everything closed down.
Yeah.
So it just got strange. Things are starting to get back to normal now. We'll have to see how it goes. But as far as sports is concerned, it feels a lot more normal than it did this time last year, which is good. But here's some of the part that does not feel normal, and we'll just start getting into it. We'll just start getting into some of the main topics with sports over the last week or so. I haven't been watching too much NBA, so we'll get into that in just a couple of seconds because I know that the Phoenix Suns are in the Western Conference Finals, which is bizarre to me. I haven't seen that since the Dan Marley days. Charles Barkley,
93, 94.
yeah,
right.
93, 94, where they should have won the NBA Finals, but
Right.
but Paxson came out of nowhere and
Right.
put a dagger
He was
in there.
open, yes.
Oh my God! Yes, I saw him collapsing on Jordan. I'm like, no, don't
Yeah.
leave Paxson open. Anyway, I hated the Bulls.
And that would have been a great story for the Phoenix Suns fans, just like
man.
it would be now.
Yeah.
And not to steer
it'd
off
be
course
great
here,
now,
but
yeah.
Watching the NBA playoffs, and I'm going to tell you as my friend and co-host here, watch the Phoenix Suns because
Yeah.
we're seeing a guy at the twilight of his career in Chris Paul who's really cementing his greatness.
Yeah, no, I was
Chris
really
Paul
impressed.
may have this
yeah.
team in the finals.
Yeah.
Really?
And my man Booker, who I liked coming out of college, who I thought was going to leave Phoenix at some point, and so yeah, that's a really cool story. It's not a big market team, obviously, although Phoenix is a relatively big size market, but
It does
not
have
a sports
NFL,
market.
does have NHL, does have major college, so it is big.
It does have, yeah, it is,
But
and
it's
I'm not sure.
It's not recognized as big as New York, Chicago, Miami, Philadelphia,
Yeah,
LA.
yeah. It kind of feels like it's on the same trajectory as Sacramento.
Right.
Although it does have NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
It does have all the big sports, and I think they have a Major League Soccer team as well. So I don't know if that's true. I don't pay attention too much to soccer, but I'll have to ask the soccer people out there.
Silence over here. I'm not sure either. I don't think they do.
Here's something that's even crazier. Somebody said to me the other day, and I don't even remember who it was, but somebody said that maybe it was my business partner said something about the Giants.
Her name is Megan.
Yeah, well, maybe Megan. Maybe did you say something about the Giants being in first place? Yeah, that's right. She did. Okay, so I just want to make
she
sure.
was taunting
I just want to
you
make sure
because
that
you
that
had
was the
you
female
had
I
a
got it
Dodger
from.
hat.
Yeah, well, no, it's what we were looking at the TV, and she was like, "Oh man, I can't wait to go to a Giants game. The Giants are like having like the best year in like years," and I'm like, "No, they're not. I haven't even been paying attention." And then I looked at the standings, and I'm like, "Holy crap, they are! They're like so in Major League Baseball and all these different MLB and all these different websites came out and gave their top 5 teams that are out there. And if you look at just on record and everything else, you got Tampa Bay, who was in the World Series the bizarre quasi World Series that my Dodgers did win. And then you got the Chicago White Sox. Mm-hmm. You got the LA Dodgers, San Francisco, and Oakland.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Oakland in the top 5 right now, looking really good in the American League West.
With small market budget.
Yeah. Billy Ball, bro.
Exactly. And it lingers, and the Oakland A's could be on the move. And Major League Baseball gave the Oakland ownership group the green light to say, look around.
Yeah.
You can look around, because normally a relocation in pro sports is a failure on the league. I remember interviewing David Stern, the NBA commissioner, years ago, and he said, we don't want teams relocating. It's a bad look. Mm-hmm. And, well, that's interesting. And but the Oakland A's, Oakland has already lost the Warriors to San Francisco, lost the Raiders to Oakland or to Las Vegas, and may lose the Oakland A's all because there's not money to get a stadium. Well, build a new stadium. Where's it going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? And so,
where would you put it?
And it's the almost archaic old dump of a major league or NBA or NFL major sports venue. Sports.
I mean, I moved to the Bay Area from LA when in 1987. Right. So, and I don't know, I was maybe a year and a half old.
Yeah, give or
take 15 years or so. And we would go to Oakland games all the time. This is back when they had the ice plants and everything out in the outfield before they had Mount Davis out there. And I liked it. I liked the stadium. I didn't like Hagenberger. I didn't like being out there in the dumps.
Right.
But I liked the stadium. And even to this day, I still go. I haven't this
You like
year.
the stadium because that's what you knew.
I guess I just don't see it as being that bad.
Well, but that's what's interesting. You remember Arco Arena? And it was a dump, but fans would say, "Well, this is great." Well, you go to the Pepsi Center in Denver, or you go to Staples Center, or you go to here, and they don't go. So they're used to what they're seeing. But Arco died, and it was, there was grass out there in the parking lot, growing old weeds. The bathroom stalls were rotting from the bottom up. It was just decaying, and that arena wasn't that old. It was built in '88, which is not like 1920, but it was built on the cheap for $40 million.
Was it built in '88?
1988.
Jeez, I don't even remember.
And it was for $40 million, which was really cheap.
Well, that is
really cheap then. Yeah. Now they're $1 billion. And it's been a while, but Minnesota plays in an arena, and so does Orlando, that were also built in '88, and they've withstood.
Yeah.
And so now, not to go off course here, Keith, but the Kings almost relocated 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. And until you've got to get a new arena. If you don't get a new arena, you won't survive. That's why the Raiders had to leave. And that's why Oakland fans should appreciate, hey, you're in first place. This doesn't mean they're going to leave next year. It could take 2 or 3 years. And another topic for another day, they're not coming to Sacramento. Where are they going to play?
Yeah. I mean,
kick out the River Cats. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. The River Cats are the AAA feeder to the Giants. They just signed a 10-year extension. Yeah. It doesn't happen that way. And there is no major league team in Major League Baseball that has a AAA team in the same city. Yeah. You just kind of separate those. So it's a nice fantasy, but it's not going to happen.
And what about Oregon?
Oregon. I love Oregon. I'm a native Oregon.
There in Portland.
Well, Portland would love to have it.
They got a minor league team up in Portland, so
that's true, and that'll probably make it problematic. There's talk that may wind up in Las Vegas. How weird is that? Vegas forever. No, you're not going to have anything here. We're worried about the gambling. Well, now the NFL's there.
Yeah, it's
NHL is there, and that NHL team, the Golden Knights, went to the finals. Stanley Cup Finals a couple of years ago,
and they may do it again this year.
Yeah, so. And that's like okay.
Yeah.
I don't think.
The Raiders will probably be good. I think they'll be a lot better this year as well. So they could have a successful NFL team. The Golden Knights, they're playing. They're probably going to beat Montreal, so they're going to be doing
right
well.
Right there. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So I could see Oakland going there.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: is we're bemoaning. It's a great word. We're bemoaning and fussing about this 109-degree weather here in El Dorado Hills.
Yeah.
Well, that's like that in Las Vegas every day. So if you're doing if you're doing baseball up there, you're going to have a dome stadium?
Yeah.
See, that's going to be brutal. And, you think about the Raiders. The Raiders' first year was in Vegas. In a non-COVID year, they would have set that city upside down.
Yeah.
They had no fans the whole year. I mean, what a clunker. And some people think, well, that's kind of that COVID karma. How dare the Raiders bail out of Oakland? Can't blame the owner. They could not get a deal. And so their first year, they had no fans. I mean, how much money did they lose?
What do you think? What's driving San Francisco? Because when I look at the lineup outside of Soul Glow, what's his name with the Jerry curl? I don't even hardly know any of these guys.
I hear you. You got Brandon
Evan
Belt.
Longoria. He's still on the team, right?
Yeah, and you got exactly. You got Crawford, Belt, Posey, 3 anchors. A year ago,
those guys are old.
The fans were all over. The manager. They wanted a new guy. He looks like he's doing some good things. There's a local story of note. Sam Long.
Yeah, you were telling me about him.
This guy's
Sammy Ballgame.
Sammy Ballgame. Slinging Sammy, and he grew up in Sacramento. He played at Del Campo High School, was a 3-year starter, All-American at Sacramento State, was drafted by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, had a back issue that people didn't know about, which hurts your pitching. Yeah. And so within a few years, he was out of baseball. And he started taking classes, Keith, at Sac State to be an EMT to be a firefighter.
Nice.
And he was only 24, and he started working out with a guy in some facility in Sacramento, and he was throwing 93 miles an hour. And what happened, he got healthy, and his back got stronger. And I said, you're a lefty. You're throwing 93, 94. And then he got back on the radar, and the Giants signed him a minor league deal. And then all of a sudden, he skyrockets right up. He blazes right through AAA. And now he has his first start for the Giants last week. He 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. It's like, how about that? Yeah. So great story there on that young guy. So things like that, you add all those pieces together, they get a little success. And but baseball, I mean, it's such a marathon, and it's so hard to win. I mean, the Dodgers win last year for the first time since '88, since Kirk Gibson and those guys. It is hard to break through, and
well, they would have won. I'm convinced they would have won back-to-back World Series if it wasn't for Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts is the worst manager in all of sports. Oh. I've been saying it for a long time. I don't
know if he's worse than what Doc Rivers has done with Philadelphia and blowing all these leads.
In the NBA lately though. But Doc at least had he had a championship under his belt. Took the Celtics and finally won after, I don't know, 86 maybe.
Right.
And so he's kind of crapped the bed a little bit since then. But Dave Roberts, the way he managed that team in those 2 World Series when they were Game 7 in L.A. against Houston, who probably cheated anyway. But it's like...
Probably. Yeah. Can I edit that word out?
Yeah. So they did cheat. They can go ahead and keep the ring. No, whatever, man. There's an asterisk. But, I mean, watching him manage that was like watching blind people... try to navigate.
How does he hold his job then?
I don't know.
How does he not lose his locker room?
Bro, that's the part. I think he doesn't lose the locker room because he was a player and he's a player's manager, and he's always got his players back. Never throws anybody under the bus. That part I respect about him. But the fact of the matter is the way he mismanages his lineup, the way he mismanages his pitching staff, he blew through every pitcher he had in that Game 7. In that whole series, he blew every. It was like you look at the bench, there was nobody left to pitch.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do now, man? Yeah. Like, you didn't enter it. And he would do like these weird righty and lefty things. And I was like, bro, you're not smart. You're not doing what traditional guys do.
What was it we were saying earlier in the show? Don't overthink.
Yeah, dude, always over. Yeah. He's the Dusty Baker of his time, Dusty Baker would always overthink.
And that's the thing about managers or coaches. You're defined by your legacy, and if he doesn't win the World Series, they might have let him go.
Yeah, maybe.
And you're talking about, I think you said the Chicago White Sox are another team in first place. Yep. Tony La Russa.
Yeah, La Russa.
There's a retread.
Yeah, he's been doing it for a long time, man.
The other night, the White Sox played the Astros, and it was the first time in Major League history that 2 managers faced each other, and the managers were 70 years or older. So that's La Russa and then Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Dusty Baker.
How about that?
And those guys I don't think like each other very much. I mean, you've covered them, right? So
I've known Dusty for years. Yeah.
He's a super nice guy too. Dusty is. Because I've met him plenty of times, and I interviewed him. He's a great guy. I just thought he was a bad manager.
And it's amazing how a decision can define you. So, he was with the Giants, managing them 2002 or so. They're playing Anaheim, and he pulls out a pitch.
Yep.
He'll never overcome it.
No.
And I've talked to him about it, and he, it eats at you. And but as a manager, you're trusted to make that instinct and that call, and he believed it.
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
No,
and so it's on him, and he knows that, and he knows this is probably his last go.
Oh, yeah, it has to be.
Then you also ask him, Dusty, why? He's a Sacramento guy. He goes, why don't you just retire and fish and do your winery and all? Because they compete. Tony La Russa, dude, why aren't you on the beach somewhere? Because this is what they do.
I know. It's really hardwired into him, man.
Yeah, and I saw Oscar De La Hoya is going to have a fight this week at 48. And it's like, why don't you be? Because this is who they are. This is what they are and who they are. And I guess you could kind of root again, for them. But sometimes I wouldn't mind seeing Oscar just get clocked.
Yeah,
knock him right into retirement.
If he fought somebody who was really good and somebody who was at the top of their game right now, he'd get his ass whooped.
Yes.
Well, let's transition now that since we're talking about that and age and getting up there and everything else. Tom Brady. So Tom Brady comes out and he says at the end of the Super Bowl last year that somebody asked him if he was going to play until he was 50. And he said, I can't commit to that. He's like, 50 is even pretty old, and pretty much that's even hard for someone like me who keeps my body in tip-top shape and everything else. Even if you protected him well, I do think I've been a Brady defender because I love Tom Brady. I grew up a Patriots fan, and they never won crap. They got their butts kicked in '85 by the Chicago Bears, which anybody was going to lose.
Tony Eason just got devoured.
Oh yeah, I think we scored first.
Yeah,
and we were up
3-0.
like 3-0.
I remember that. So this could be a big one.
I was like, we're going to do this, man. And then they just proceeded to lose. I don't even remember what it was, 45-3 or something like that. It was
10,
awful.
I think 45-10.
Yeah, and but I mean, I never won anything until Tommy came to town, and Tommy's a Bay Area guy. And I remember when I was in high school. He's 3 years younger than me, so I remember in my senior year, we
what high school were you?
Newark Memorial.
Okay, so you're in the Bay Area, and he was a Sarah of San Mateo, so you guys were at the same time.
We were probably 15 miles apart from each other. So he was a freshman when I was a senior, and we had heard about him, and we had heard that because we would play Sarah in scrimmages and stuff like that. We weren't in the same league. We didn't have. We were in the MVAL and Mission Valley Athletic League, and they were in a different league. But
they were the West Catholic Athletic League.
Yeah, and so
we know that because it's important to know shit around here.
Yeah, of course,
Excuse
it's important.
My verbiage.
No.
Yeah.
This is there are no FCC regulations.
Okay, well,
good. So we'd heard about him, and but that was it. Like we heard, we got this new kid, and he's supposed to be really, really good, and he's like a top prospect and everything else. And he had a pretty good high school career, and then went on to have a mediocre college career until what was it, the Orange Bowl, when he did Tom Brady shit. You know what I'm saying?
And let me stop you right there. So he didn't even lead a playoff team in high school. They went 5-5 one year, 4-6 the other year. He was really good in baseball, same school as Barry Bonds. Yep. They played different times, and so he was a good-sized kid, 6'4" in high school, and before the internet, before cell phones where you could have easy access to a cell video, his dad filmed him. Yeah. And had a little thing where he said, "This is Tom Brady, and he's a high school senior," and they sent out film.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
But he was a big guy, so he got the scholarship, and I don't even think he starts until his senior year, and he was solid, but not an All-American. The team was okay. He had the big bowl game, and Tom Yee was a guy from Sacramento. Grew up in Sacramento, and he wanted to be an agent. And his first target was Tom Brady, and he went to that bowl game, and he was able to get a hold of the father, and was able to sign him. And only it's a 6th-round pick. Well, good luck with that. Yeah. And then look how that turned out. Yeah. And then the guy becomes great. But you talk about timing. So it's Drew Bledsoe's team, and Drew Bledsoe gets blown up.
That's right.
Tom Brady comes in, I think it's 2001, and they never look back.
They never looked back. They didn't lose another game.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, do the Patriots have that kind of run with Bledsoe, who was a good quarterback?
No, they don't.
We'll never know.
No, I don't think so. And here's where I was leading to it. I don't think he'll play until he's 50. I'm a big Tom Brady fan. I think this will probably be his final year. Maybe one more after that, depending on what they do this year.
Will this be his 20th season?
No, this will be like his 21st season. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, he'll be 45, I think, when the season starts, because I think his birthday is in August, I think. So or early September, I think. And so when the season starts, I believe he'll be 45, maybe 44. I got to double check on that. He's my man crush. You'd think I would know these things.
I'm disappointed that you don't.
I know. And when, tonight when I go home and stare at my poster, I'll apologize to the god of Tom Brady. Sorry, TV12. No, but so we had this big discussion when he went to Tampa Bay, and it broke my heart, man, because I have zero love and affection for anything that's in Florida. I don't care about any teams. Neither does anybody there, right? So it's like I was like, I didn't want him to go to Tampa Bay. I was like, I even, this is the crazy thing. I hate the San Francisco 49ers with every bit of passion that I have. And
every fiber in your body,
every
right?
single fiber. I hate them so much. I want them to drop out of the league. And
you know what? It's mutual.
I know.
They probably say, hey, Keith,
I promise
who's
it
Keith
is.
Brooks?
But here's the crappy thing.
Is he still on the air?
I was actually pulling for him to go to San Francisco because he'd be close. It would be.
There were discussions.
It would be like a story of him coming home. That's his home team. That's who he loved. His Joe Montana. He continues to call Joe Montana the GOAT. So it's like it would be serendipitous. Mark that down. It's the first time I've ever used that word.
I don't even know what it means.
I don't know what it means either. I've just heard it a few times. And so he goes. I was thinking he could go there, and if he had gone there, they would have won the last 2 Super Bowls. But instead, he goes to Tampa Bay, and then they win the Super Bowl. And I didn't watch any NFL last year, which we'll talk about in a second. But I did watch. That
really sealed his greatness. I mean, he was already great, but to go to
another team
and really wasn't sharp all season, but boy did he click. I mean, it's like, and here's the thing, a lot of people can't stand Tom Brady because they're
successful.
Exactly, and he's not on their team.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's easy to. There were a lot of Buccaneers fans who probably didn't like him. Now he's on their team. Oh, we love the guy.
It's just like in Major League with the guy that who was it? The guy that came over from from the Yankees and he played for Cleveland. And they hated him, and he goes, "Yeah, it's amazing what a new uniform can do to a guy."
How about Dennis Rodman when he was with the Detroit Pistons? The Bulls fans hated him.
Absolutely.
Then when he was with them, he's just misunderstood. He's our guy.
It was the same thing with me. I hated. There's a lot of people that I could not stand, but I knew that if we got them on, and that happened a couple of times. I get a couple of guys that I absolutely couldn't stand on my team, and Wes Welker was one of them. I just didn't like his little Speedy Gonzalez look. He just irritated me. And then he came to our team, and I'm like, yes, sir.
I love the guy.
And then I called him Sir Drops a lot because he couldn't hold on to the ball when the moments were big, which was crazy because he was so good otherwise, But so
Brady's easy to root for, because he's greatness. And there's the same kind of argument, Keith. Well, LeBron James. A lot of people don't like him. Hey, just appreciate this guy's greatness. We don't see guys like this every year. That comeback that Brady had against the Falcons a few years ago in the playoffs, and it's like we are watching greatness unfold. It's like this is Montana-esque, and here he is. Back to your original point, I hope he doesn't play till 50.
Nah, I don't want to see that.
And I would think his family, wouldn't want him to. And there's nothing worse than seeing greatness erode.
Yeah.
And where you're just not quick enough, and your arm strength is a little bit less. And the fear is we may see that this year, or he could just do more Tom Brady things again.
I think before he allows that to happen, he would leave because. Guys like Peyton Manning, I watched him bumble after his last 2 seasons, and especially the one where they won the Super Bowl, where he was a liability,
right?
And
he knew it,
yeah.
But his greatness was enough where they won the Super Bowl. But he was a fraction. He was a shell of himself.
Oh, he was a shell of himself, and I've seen it. I watched him in person in his prime, and it was meticulous. I've seen Tom Brady a ton of times in person. And his ability to check down, to read defenses, to adjust, his ability to throw. He didn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he would put footballs in places where I was like, "Why are you throwing it?" Oh, there is somebody right there to grab it. Like he was like he kind of forced everybody around him to step their game up, to come in early, to leave late, and he got them all to buy into this, team first, me second mentality. And then so the big discussion when he went over to Tampa Bay was, well, we'll find out if it was Belichick or Brady. I can tell you that right now. I know that it's Brady because Belichick wasn't that great without Tom Brady. I'm sorry, that's just the case, and I got the numbers to prove it.
No, that's true. And Bruce Arians is a hell of a coach.
Hell of a coach, yeah.
And look what he did with Kurt Warner and got the Cardinals in Arizona to the Super Bowl, and he does it here and demanding. All right, let's see your Belichick numbers.
I've been watching Belichick my whole life, right? I watched him when he was an assistant coach with the Giants. Watched him when he went over to Cleveland for that debacle, and then went over to, and he did have one good season with Cleveland. He was 10-6, but the rest of the seasons, the other season he was 5-11. He is a career 5-11 coach without Tom Brady. His record with Tom Brady, 224-66 with Tom Brady. Without Tom Brady, 51-66.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've watched him. I know that he's great X's and O's guy. I know O's guy. I know that he really. I know he's a great football coach. But the fact of the matter is that whether the game has passed him by, or whether he thinks too highly of himself, or he overthinks, or whatever the hell the problem is, preparation is legendary. But his execution on some of these things, like when I watched him, coach the Super Bowl. And I watched him try to turn his team into from a running gun, scoring 34 points a game, to running the ball and pounding the ground and not utilizing.
But how much is that on the coordinator?
I think that.
I mean, he's got a headset, so he could overrule.
Yeah. I don't think that it was. I don't remember.
And a lot of it, he's trusting his quarterback. Which is great, and we know that Belichick was really good in drafting and defense and
with defense
trades and free agent
drafting with offense sucks.
Yeah, and but it just really speaks of the greatness of Brady, because he's the one making. And this is not an athletic guy.
No,
he's not going to run. I mean, he's not Patrick Mahomes.
No, man, he gets rid of the ball inside of 2 seconds. That's what he does, and if he can't do it. And he makes sure that the receivers around him understand that they need to be where they need to be, and it's all about precision with him.
Yeah.
And as soon as that precision is gone, that's when things start to fall apart. That's why that last year in New England, and they had all those rookies, and they were just dropping balls right and left. They weren't where they were supposed to be, and he was so frustrated. And they just wouldn't get the guys to surround him. If the Patriots would have gone out and onto the free agency market and got a couple of guys to surround him. But
sometimes guys need a change. And
true.
Look how motivated he was. And who would ever thought that the 49ers would have ever traded Joe Montana? And they traded him because, are they going to be committed to 2 monster contracts? This is back in 93, 94 or so, and they traded him because they had Steve Young.
Yeah.
And then Montana had a couple big years, motivated. Well, and look at Peyton Manning. How could he ever leave Indianapolis? Well, they're gonna draft Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
you can't fault that.
And you're going to Denver.
And then he puts them over the top. The next guy who may be in that kind of argument is Aaron Rodgers. Probably not going to be back with Green Bay.
Glad you brought that up, because that's my next topic.
He's fed up.
Yeah.
And if he goes to Denver or wherever, he's going to be motivated. And there's a lot of greatness left in that guy. He was the MVP last year.
He's got several years left in him. That was the next thing that I was going to move to as you're hanging out here with me, Keith Brooks, a.k.a. Boondock, and my man Joe Davidson here on this brand new sports show that we've just launched. You're going to love it. I know that you are. I'll give you details on how exactly you can listen and where you can find it. We got the YouTube channel now. We've got everything's kind of working in our favor. So
social media.
You're going to have to look at our ugly faces now. But we talked about I talked about Aaron Rodgers all off season because he won the MVP. I've interviewed him several times. You probably have as well. I didn't like him at first, and I've never been a Green Bay fan. But over the years, he's grown on me. I like the fact that he's kind of a local kid. I think he played at he was up in Chico, right?
He was at Pleasant Valley High in Chico.
Yeah, Pleasant Valley High, and then went to Cal.
Well, went to Butte College.
Then over to Cal.
The one thing I didn't like about Aaron Rodgers, and he still pounds this theme, and good for you, Aaron Rodgers, where you always have this chip on your shoulder, and you got overlooked. Nobody's in the market for a 5'10", 165 pound quarterback. They're just not.
No.
And so he goes to Butte College, which is a national powerhouse right there in Oroville. And our producer Megan say, I know where that is. And he it was his latest freshman year, and Jeff Tedford, the Cal coach, had the Bears soaring. He went up there to go watch a practice because he was looking at a tight end and said, who's this quarterback?
Yeah.
So he'd grown 2 inches and added some weight. That's how he got discovered.
Yeah.
And he probably would have wound. So then he goes to Cal, and I covered a lot of Cal games, and he gets Cal rolling. And they played a game at USC, 92,000 people or 98,000 people down in the LA Coliseum, and he completes, I think, 22 in a row.
Yeah.
After they lose late, and he didn't want to face the media. Oh. And so a lot of us media people said, "Get him out here. This is part of leadership, accountability."
Yeah.
And so he finally came out, and I asked him about it, and he kind of said, "Yeah, I need to be out here." Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So he's always kind of had a little bit of
that with the media.
that edge. And he certainly has had a great career with Green Bay. But there are reports coming out now, Keith, where people have said, general managers around the league said he's not always well liked by his coaches or the front office or his teammates. He's considered kind of aloof and egotistical or whatever.
That's always been his rap.
You're as good as what you're Tom Brady's teammates love the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that Aaron Rodgers has always done is he's always given back. And he when Paradise High School burned, or the whole town burned down, that hit home for him. He wasn't a Paradise High guy. He was just up the road. He donated a lot of equipment, a lot of helmets. Didn't do it for show. He did it because he cared.
No, he does. He does.
But there's something deeper with this guy too, where he's had a falling out with his parents.
Yeah, his brother,
and he won't talk about it. I've interviewed his parents, not about this, but when he was a player, it's always a local good story when they're in the Super Bowl. They're deeply hurt, and we don't know what's going on there. Really, none of our business. And there's a lot of good reporters out there. They can't seem to figure it out. And
there's something with them.
Something went wrong where what I could deduce is they didn't approve of his lifestyle or a woman he was with or his falling out with his brother or something. Mm-hmm. And we could say how we feel here, Keith, but that seems a little shallow on his part.
He's always been that way. Like the rap on him has always been he's kind of a aloof, shallow, thin-skinned. Always talking about how the Niners didn't pick him. All of that stuff. That Tom Brady dealt with the same crap, and he turned it into the greatest quarterback career ever.
Hey, and it worked out just fine for Aaron Garcia or Aaron Rodgers. Who's to say that Rodgers would have been Hall of Fame great if he stayed with the 49ers? We don't know.
We don't know. But I will say this: I have watched Aaron Rodgers now for since he came into the league, and I was a Favre fan, and I love Favre. To this day, I love Favre, and I didn't know much about Rodgers except that he was kind of a local kid, and then over the years I watched him, and I didn't like him because of that aloofness, that sarcasm, that douchebaggery that seemed to, like, he just kind of gave off this douchey, like, I'm better than you vibe with them big ass bug eyes of his, and it just irritated.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, he looked like the Great Gazoo from the Flintstones with that stupid helmet that was way too big for. Like, I was always irritated at him, and then over the years, and then I interviewed him at the AT&T Pro-Am, right? And
up in Tahoe.
At the no, not at Edgewood. That's the other one. At Pebble Beach.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we were sitting down talking, and I said, I'm going to get him on, and I'm going to force him to acknowledge that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, right? And it just come off. This was 2014. Tom Brady had just won the Super Bowl. Maybe it was 2015. I don't remember. He just won the Super Bowl with where they beat Seattle, right? So we were up in like a week later was the AT&T. So we're sitting there, and I'm talking with all these NFL guys. I had I can't remember what was the guy's name who was the quarterback or was the coach of the Jets for a while. Is it Marv? What's his name? God dang it!
Oh, I know who you're talking. You were in it to win the game.
Yes, you win the game. Hello,
Herb Edwards.
Herb Edwards. Right. I love that guy. I had him on, and we talked, and I was like, "Oh my God, this dude's like the greatest. I love this guy." And then we had a couple other guys on, and then in comes Aaron Rodgers, and we were not sure he was going to actually sit in with us. And my producer said, "We got Aaron Rodgers coming." I said, "The hell we are." Aaron Rodgers ain't coming in here. That dude's he's such a douche. He's not going to come. He's not going to sit down with us. He's not going to talk football. He's going to be, I don't know, texting Danica Patrick or something. So I'm like sitting there, and then as I'm talking to my producer with my head turned, talking to my producer about how he's not going to come in because he's kind of a douche, Aaron Rodgers comes walking in. And I don't think he heard me, but he came walking in. No handlers, nobody. He just said, I think I'm supposed to be here next. And we were the only radio station there. And he sat down, and we probably talked football for 25 minutes when he was supposed to be there for about 5.
How was he?
Sweetest dude in the world.
Good.
And
No,
I'm
he's got it
pissed
in him.
because he was such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I said to him before everything else, I said to him, and this is back when I was at Sports 1140, and I said, before we get going, can I just get you to admit that the greatest of all time is Tom Brady? He goes, I've been saying that for years. And I went, I love you.
Yeah.
All right, the rest of this interview is done. I don't need to say anything else. The man's like a good guy in my book.
And you know what? That's Aaron Rodgers. He has goodness. He can be very likable. He's done a lot of good interviews. When he
Plus, he got to see Danica Patrick.
Exactly. I used to talk to him quite a bit when he was at Cal, and you would appreciate this story, even though you're not a Packer fan, but you're a football fan. When he was a rookie with the Packers, I went up to Green Bay to do a story on a week at the training camp inside Packer Mania through the eyes of like 3 local guys. Mm-hmm. The assistant head coach, line coach, was James Campen, who went to Ponderosa High School, played for years in the NFL with the Packers. So he was my host of sorts. I'd known him for years. A couple other guys were local, and Aaron Rodgers. And here was, this was Brett Favre's team, and Campen, the coach from Sacramento area, he was buddies with Favre, and he set me up with a nice one-on-one, which was unheard of in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Favre was in such demand that he only did one press conference a week.
Wow.
But he said, we brought him in, and we chit-chatted, and I said, what do you think of Aaron Rodgers? This guy may take, he goes, I hope he pushes me.
Yeah.
And I thought, pretty good attitude.
Yeah.
And
because when he first came in, it didn't sound like he was.
Nobody wants to. And I think here's the irony: is Aaron Rodgers has got his thong in a bunch because he's got. They drafted a quarterback last year.
Not a bad one.
Hey, you gotta. It's a business. And we know in the NFL,
same thing happened to Tom Brady.
Exactly, and you're gonna take a hit. You could be gone. You could, just whatever. If you're the Packers, I think you have to trade him. It's hard to. Yeah. You can't make him report.
No, he's already skipped minicamp.
Yeah.
And that was the question I was going to ask you, because he skipped minicamp. I don't expect that he'll be there at all through.
And what a bad look.
It's a bad look, but
NFL MVP for a Super Bowl contender who doesn't want to be around.
And that's crazy too, because Green Bay is a Super Bowl contender. I don't know if LaFleur is not. I don't know if he's the guy or not, but it's like I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do. I guess you're right that the only thing you could really do is trade him, but doesn't that that kind of sets a bad precedent moving forward?
But this is sports now. Look at Zion Williamson. The word came out this week. He's the powerhouse forward for New Orleans Pelicans. He's a beast. He's a man-child. And the family, this is how sports have changed, Keith. The family is leaking it out to the media. Well, we'd like to have a change. Well,
bro,
were you the coach?
Yeah, he just got here.
And so, is it a bad precedent? Geez, Magic Johnson in 1981 did not like Paul Westhead anymore.
Yeah.
And they won a championship. So this stuff's been going on for years. And that's the deal with, we'll talk about this in other shows, but in high school, the coach is the boss.
Yeah.
In college, the coach is the boss.
Yeah.
In the NBA, NFL,
really the boss
it's
in college.
You really, these players they got pull.
Oh, they do. John Elway.
They have a huge influence. 1983 NFL draft. I don't want to go to, and he came across as arrogant and petulant and big target, and
he tried to say, well, I can't play my best football in the cold weather. And you're like, go to Denver, bro? Yeah. Have you been to Denver?
He's just trying to leverage his way out of there, and he became an all-time great. There's no doubt, but it was bad look. And he didn't. Irsay is one of the all-time douchebags, if we want to talk about douchebags.
He is.
That you see these documentaries, and I'm not interested in selling the Colts. Have another one. And then they move. Or I'm not interested in moving. And so that's what's great about sports is you have I don't want to say purity of high school sports and college, because we know there's a lot of business going on. We'll talk about that in upcoming shows, and transfers in high schools and the transfer portal in college, and these, should college athletes get paid some kind of stipend? Yes, probably. I could see why they don't. You don't want guys making $100,000 a year washing cars or whatever it might be. So, no, if you're the Green Bay Packers, a fan, and there's a huge amount of Packer fans in this country, even though it's the smallest market team. they're hurting.
Yeah.
Because if they lose, they're never going to get fair value.
They'll never get fair value, and nobody will ever be Aaron Rodgers.
They'd have to reboot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So we know that draft picks are the lifeblood in the NFL. So what is he going to get? 2 first-rounders?
Yeah. I mean, you could.
Years ago, he'd get 4 or 5.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
Back in 78, 79, I did a flashback story when the 49ers won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. The 49ers had some dreadful trades. They traded in 1978 for washed-up O.J. Simpson.
Yeah,
and they gave up 3 number 1 picks.
Yeah, I remember
and he had nothing left.
Yeah.
That'd be unheard of.
Yeah.
Today, you might give up a 5th rounder.
Yeah, no, they're
and a bucket of ice.
All of the GMs and the owners now way more bullish when it comes to giving up those picks. Those picks are sought after, especially in the
That's
NFL.
how you elevate. If you pick
Yeah.
right, that's what the Kings have done wrong.
Oh yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
Oh my goodness! And so, if you're a small market team, what do you have to do in the NBA to succeed? You'd better draft.
You'd
well,
Yeah.
or make a good trade.
Yeah.
Because you're not a free agent destination.
Well,
and so,
that's the point,
what
yeah.
has Phoenix done? Well, Phoenix drafted really well. Booker.
Really well. Well, they had 2. They
and then they got a nice acquisition in
Chris Paul,
and then they had the first pick of the draft in Deontay Ayton. They hit home runs with those guys.
Ayton, but they
Same with Utah.
but
Draft picks.
Ayton, they got Ayton, and he's good. They could have had Luka Doncic though, and they did have 2 years in a row where they blew the 4th round pick. The 4th overall pick. They had bad back to back. Not bad back to back. They had one bad 4th. Pick 4,
yeah.
number 4 pick. They got Ayton with it, and then they had one. I can't even remember the dude's name, but that dude's a wash. But they could have got Luka. But I mean, they've done pretty well, and
that's how you get
and
it.
they've built it because they're not a destination city. The same way with Sacramento.
Right.
Sacramento's got to draft well and hope that they can hold on for
You
3 or
can't
4
have Thomas
years.
Robinson. You can't draft Jimmer Fredette. You can't draft Thomas Robinson.
God.
You can't draft
Stop
Quincy
drafting
Doobie.
white guys.
Just guys who can't play.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Luka Doncic. So why didn't the Kings grab him? Well, wouldn't Vlade Divac, Kings general manager then, most beloved King in all time or in franchise history, he might have been onto something. Because if you see The Athletic and ESPN had some great reporting on Luka Doncic, so Rick Carlisle just stepped down as 2 years.
He couldn't 13 years.
He could not get along with his star player. His star player, Luka Doncic, who's a hell of a player, was mocking him at games, would do facial gestures. There was some infighting. So Rick Carlisle said, "I'll bow out because this guy's a keeper."
Yeah.
Well, did Vlade know that? I don't know. You should still draft him. But here's the other thing: when
Vlade probably did know since he's a European.
He did, and attitude and behavior and all. Can you coach the guy? When you see Luka Doncic when he was playing overseas before he came into the draft, well, okay, he's 6'10", so he's big and can shoot, but is he fast? He's athletic? No. So it's like maybe this, So then you look at
he's pretty.
And I'm not
amazing,
defending
though.
the Kings here. I think Marvin Bagley's been a colossal disappointment. Yeah. But when Mike Krzyzewski, the Duke coach, says of Bagley, who he had for 2 years, he goes, "This guy is a great player." Yeah. It's pretty strong. He's not been a great player.
No, he's not.
He has no. He hopefully he matures into a drive because he doesn't have it. Yeah. And his dad is trying to leverage a trade since they've been there. And they feel like they're. The media's been hard on him.
The media in Sacramento, if you think that's hard, good luck anywhere else.
You know what kind of questions the media in Sacramento ask? Yeah. What's your favorite color?
Yeah, I'm telling you,
What's
man.
your first car?
Yeah.
Do you like pepperoni pizza or cheese? That's a pretty soft market.
Bro, I lived in Phoenix for a while, and even the press in Phoenix can be tough on you.
Sure.
A lot tougher than they are in Sacramento. Which is not to say that the Sacramento press, you included, don't ask hard-hitting questions or don't know your stuff. They all do. They're very good. But it's not the same market. And I think that the media people, I mean, as a writer for SAC-B doing sports, did you ever feel like you didn't want to cross a line with an athlete because you didn't want to piss them off and then be one of the causes that they want to leave town?
Well, and no player would leave because of a media person, but I see what you're saying. That's where, hard work and just being professional and thorough. If you're going to challenge a guy and say that Doug Christie needs to be better on offense,
Yeah.
and he can't just be a defensive player, then you better show up to practice the next day.
Yeah.
Don't hide.
Yeah.
Because some guys will do that. But when I was covering the Kings, I did a big takeout on Doug Christie and his wife Jackie, and the whole thing where he had his fingers up in the air to salute her, and geez, are you pussy whooped, and what is it?
Yeah.
And I got to know him, and I got to know her, and I said, I want this to be, I want you guys to really talk. They were fabulous, and they talked about, it looks a little goofy, it looks like we look like a high school crush, but we've known each other for years. And I asked Doug Christie, I said, could you see where people think that you might be pussy whooped? And he goes, hey, Joe, that means I'm happy and more people ought to be pussy whipped. And I said, you know what? I'm okay with his attitude.
Yeah.
And the big part of the story was, we had it before anybody else's, the Kings allowed him to have Jackie Christie, his wife, on the team plane. And Chris Webber and Vlade were the team captain, and said, we love Doug, we're good with it. And I said, okay. I thought that was more than fair. That story doesn't work if they don't both talk about it.
The NBA, and we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes here. We've only got a few minutes left, but I do want to.
I'm just getting warmed up.
I know. I want to end on this part of the discussion, which was something that you and I talked about, having a couple of beers last week down there at Brickyard.
During the show. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that too. It involves the NBA, and it involves sports in general. I stopped watching sports.
So let me ask you, are you back?
Yeah. No, okay. I'm not back 100%. For a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm pissed off at Major League Baseball for pretending to be political. Just shut up. Just shut up, man. Seriously, I don't want to hear about your. I am not concerned with your opinion about the Georgia voting laws. And
it doesn't fit with baseball All-Star. Yeah. It's a big loss.
It is
to not have an All-Star game. It's coming off a pandemic. You want an All-Star game in your city because it's a major economic boom.
And that city, I think the numbers are somewhere around 55 to 65% African American. You're gonna take away that revenue stream from that city because you think that requiring people to have a voter ID is somehow anti-black or something. Now we won't get into the politics of it because it's that's a deeper conversation. But when Major League Baseball decides it's going to go from being baseball, which they have enough trouble trying to figure out, into jumping into sports or jumping into politics, that's where you lose me.
They should have just discussed it, and have a passionate press conference about it,
or say they disagree with it or something.
We disagree with it, but we're going to embrace this All-Star game because we want to show off our venue and our city.
Yeah, and then the other thing
they've had Super Bowls there.
Right? Yeah, and then the other thing that they did was during COVID and having people, having managers come out there with masks on, and it's like some people had masks on, some people didn't. It was before the vaccine. It's like it was so bizarre and weird, and then cardboard cutout people and stuff like that. It's like what are you guys doing, man? Get your shit together, man. Like none of this makes any sense. Now I can understand in the first few weeks trying to figure some stuff out. I just felt like it was wokeness, it was political correctness running amok, and them moving the All-Star game. I have had many opportunities to go to Major League Baseball games since. I refuse to do it ever again unless they decide to pull out of this politic game that they know nothing about.
And it's what we talked on earlier. The consumer drives all this interest, and you're not alone. There are hundreds of thousands. The ratings for basketball, the NFL, they took a hit.
They did take a hit. Here's Major League Baseball. Last year's World Series, the Dodgers, Tampa Bay, 9 million viewers. All right. In the top game was their highest was 9 million,
and that's including a massive second largest market in America.
Los Angeles. 2019, 2019 they had 13 million at their highest game viewing for the World Series. And so that's a huge hit from one year to the next. And in their biggest year, 2004, they had 25 million people at their highest game watching World Series. It has dropped to 9 million. I don't think that's a coincidence. And then as far as attendance at the games, 32,000 was the average in 2007. In 2019, it had dropped to 26,000 now. And that was before the pandemic.
Right.
When it comes to NBA, you've got woke culture, you've got LeBron James mouthing off about everything, and we'll get into that probably on the next show because we don't have a ton of time left. But
we're real quick, I can understand why LeBron James wants to speak out because he's got a big platform and he's done a lot of great things and helping kids go to college and all that. But again, your consumer. Do they want to hear?
Well, the NBA is basically what the NBA is told a major with Black Lives Matter, putting it on the floors, things of that nature, and then watching Black Lives Matter and Antifa burn cities down and things. Black Lives Matter, the sentiment is completely different from Black Lives Matter, the group, and it was, and then you had like these players coming out making it sound like if you don't agree with them, then you're some sort of racist. They alienated a giant part of their audience. And basically said, we don't want you.
And it confuses, I think, the young people.
It does. It does confuse the young people. Now,
what am I supposed to believe? And I love LeBron James and I love this, but I don't, my parents are mad because of what he's saying. So it's...
exactly. And the ratings have took a huge hit. And just to give you an example, last year's NBA Finals, or was this year with LeBron James Lakers facing the Miami Heat, they had 7 million viewers. Now, in to contrast that, we've only got a couple minutes left. Gonzaga and the Baylor game, 17 million people watched that. And
something fresh, something without politics. Dripping, yeah.
And at least not, yeah. And LeBron James is one of those guys too, who's like, it's not just politics. It's like, it's LeBron James who's always pushing it. And then on top of that, back in 1998, the Bulls and the Jazz, there was 37 million that watched that one. So you look at, and then ESPN real quick, the ratings for 2020, as far as the ratings were concerned, as far as the top 20 networks out there, you had Fox, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox affiliates. You had Home and Garden, MSNBC, Food Network, TBS, The Learning Channel, Hallmark, Nickelodeon, Investigation Channel, never heard of that. USA Network, Univision,
all
Turner,
had higher.
History. And then ESPN, because they're the wokest of them all. So
I think Gilligan's Island even had reruns.
The reruns. We will get into that more on our next show. That'll be like a precursor to us talking about wokeism and will I really come back at some point going into the next show.
You may change your mind in a week.
May do that. I'm glad everybody was watching, paying attention, hanging out with us. This is a brand new thing for myself and Joe. Joe's been involved in sports for 30 plus years. I've been involved with radio for 20 plus years, and I did sports for a few years, and both passionate sports people. And so we're glad that you're watching and paying attention and everything else. And we want you to check us out. So Spotify, iTunes, just go to the Boondock Underground. You'll see under that umbrella, you'll see the show, and you'll get a chance to tune in and check it out. So until next time, which is going to be 1 week from now. Thanks for hanging out with us, Joe. You got any parting words?
No, we're going to be fun. We're unfiltered, and then maybe at some point we'll invite people to send us an email or a text, and if you got a question or a topic, we'll jump on it.
And we're going to have a female who's part of our show is going to be over at the bar over there, who's going to be doing stuff and paying attention and
basically pretty it up a little bit.
Yeah, they're going to make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. Yes. So, thanks for listening, and we'll check you out next time. I'm out.